Blake, where are you most afraid of getting murdered?
Toby, did you know people sleep in the middle of the woods?
Welcome to the ChurchGear podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who keeps turning down invitations to go to Murder Mountain. On a hike. And I'm here with my co-host, who is property on Murder Mountain, Toby Walters.
Where else am I going to bury the bodies, Blake?
You'd never bury any of the bodies. Me and Jared have to go out there and dig the graves ourselves.
Why do you think I hired employees to help me hide the bodies?
Yeah, but we keep burying other employees.
So, Blake, do you remember the barn at ChurchGear?
Do I remember the barn? I still have the scar on my lower back. You know, some people have a tramp stamp tattoo. I have a giant scar from where I got mauled by one of the shelves.
I love that. So we have some new team members here at ChurchGear, and we did our company all-staff quarterly, and so everybody came in, including a few out-of-state people, and they took a little field trip to the barn. It was the first time they'd seen it, and in their estimation, it was a bit overhyped as far as how scary it was. They're like, I figured it'd be like, more dead bodies hanging around or more like murderous creatures.
They're buried. You
Perfect.
Don't hang bodies.
So the barn was essentially, we launched ChurchGear in my basement. You remember those days. You were one of the OG. You and Chris and Brian, our original Brian, were there in the basement until
That's the voice on the podcast you hear as these episodes open.
Yeah, he's still our opener voice. But, we were carefully navigating the basement and getting around each other, barely stepping over gear without killing ourselves until my wife so kindly said, "Get out."
Well, and not just Toby's wife. Brian said, he literally told Toby on a Friday, said, I'm not coming back here till we're in another spot. He told me he quit his job. He'd moved here from California.
Yeah.
So we were at our rope's end.
I know. So my wife and I, we looked at a few properties where we could potentially move ChurchGear into and start to build the business. We didn't know how big it would be. And so we were looking for something that was big enough that we could grow into, but also, we could actually afford because we're starting a new business. So we found the barn, and it's a 3,000 square foot pole barn with a little office on 4 acres in Franklin.
Called Murder Mountain.
If you're just on the property and looking out, it's beautiful. Because it's just sort of like rural Franklin and rolling hills and cows and such. But when you walk inside, Blake, it's
murder.
So we got the barn, 3,000 square feet, and we said to I remember Brian saying to me, "This is amazing. This is all the space we'll ever need."
And that lasted for 3 months.
I was going to give it 6 months.
And there were stink bugs everywhere. We had somebody get a package early on, message me on Instagram, and he was like, "I found a stink bug in my package."
I think it was... even we sold a CD player, and when the guy opened the tray for the first time, a stink bug crawled out of it.
It was literally stinky there.
Yeah. And so for about 6 months, we thought, this is great. We're working well, we're growing. And then 6 months in, we're like, we're going to outgrow this space really fast.
Snakes were coming in. You would see dead snake skins in the warehouse.
Yeah. And so it got more and more and more packed. And then we hired Frank as our operations director. And he graciously tried to make it better. But there's only so much you can do when there is no space. And I think it was Willow Creek when we brought a 26-foot truck full of gear from Willow Creek back that finally broke the barn.
Yeah, and Frank. He's buried up on that mountain. He died trying.
So that was our moment where we're like, all right, we have to get out. But do you miss those days? Do you ever reminisce about being in the barn and just sort of the good old days in the barn?
Not for a single moment. I still remember the all-staff meeting where I watched your brain realize we're moving. I watched you take in each person's case, and then it just flipped in your head, and I was like, all right, we're getting out of here.
Yeah, I kept trying to make the barn work because it was so cost-effective, because I knew if we're going to move to a bigger space, we're going to have to lease it, and it was going to get more expensive, and then we'd have to sell more gear and hire more people, and just the anxiety was building up in my chest.
Yeah, but it's okay. We still have the barn,
We do still own the barn. It's still full of gear.
Well, and because technically you have to own grave sites forever.
That's right.
You have access to them.
Yeah.
When they're in the family.
And I love just telling these stories of the history of ChurchGear as we're reminiscing as we're in our 5-year anniversary month. And I just think the barn is a really fun piece of ChurchGear history.
Yeah, it was the terrible twos. As kids age, they had the terrible twos. We
That's
had our
right.
terrible twos there. But speaking of someone who's never thrown a temper tantrum in his life and avoided the terrible twos, we have with us the low voltage technician at ChurchFront, Jake Gosselin. Jake, welcome to the podcast.
Woo! Thanks for having me. Congrats on 5 years of your shenanigans, man.
That's a good point.
Shenanigans. I was beginning to worry. I'm still not completely convinced that ChurchGear isn't a front company for some sort of interesting operations going on behind the scenes. But it's a miracle.
Neither are half the people that work here.
All I know is I get my paycheck every week from a guy with a gun, and he says, keep doing the front. And I say, that sounds great. What if we had the guy from ChurchFront on with our front?
Yeah. And at least we don't have front in our name.
Yeah, Jake, what is yours a front for?
I won't go there, but hey, we have all the YouTube documentation on our products and services of what we're doing. So
speaking of YouTube
no front there.
Documentation, we did reminisce, like, if we ever get rid of the barn, we won't be able to show people the tour. Your video will become the tour. Like, that'll become of onboarding when you join ChurchGear.
I can't imagine what actually goes on, and who knows what goes on in the barn now.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I mean, rarely does somebody step foot into the barn other than our fulfillment team to occasionally load gear or unload gear.
Yeah, and if they do step foot in there, rarely do they step foot out of it. They kind of just, you meld into the wall. This has been a lot of nonsense so far from us. Let's keep it going.
Thanks for having me, though. Hey, I'm just trying to join the podcast in the spirit of your guys' nonstop shenanigans and roasting. So
we appreciate that.
I am grateful to be here.
Yeah. Lean in, man. If you don't roast us, it's not that fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's give Jake a chance to start fooling us. 5 Truths and a Lie, it's our weekly game where we interview the guest a little bit on their background and find out some truths. You get to know them and also one of their lies. Number 1, I was born in Vermont. Is Vermont even a real state?
I don't know. I think it's that place where people go to Instagram things, like take pictures of farms and fall leaves, but I don't know that it actually exists.
True. Number 2, I played at the International Handbell Symposium.
He looks like a handbeller to me.
We sold some handbells once upon a time. Number 3, the Behringer Wing is my favorite console.
Oh, man, there is some evidence online that might be true.
Number 4, my favorite hobby is surfing. You can't be born in Vermont. And can you surf in Vermont?
No, but you can surf in Florida, where he so braggadociously lives during the winter.
True. Number 5, I hate the cold in winter. He definitely left Vermont.
Who doesn't hate the cold in winter, though?
Number 6, I voted for Donald Trump. That's obviously the lie.
He's just laying it down on the pod. All right, Blake, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, I'm pretty confident that in a couple of the truths, so by process elimination, I'm going to say that, oh boy, he was not born in Vermont.
Okay. And I'm going to go with the Behringer Wing. I feel like once upon a time he was fighting for that wing, and while it's still a very valid console for a lot of churches, I'm going to say he finally gave up a ghost and said it's not actually his favorite. So let's see, Jake.
You're right. It's the wing. That's the lie.
Blake. Yes.
Jake, you just took
Toby's
all the
right.
wind beneath my wings and threw it to Toby.
It's no longer the Behringer Wing does not exist in my perspective anymore.
Okay.
Why did it become dead to you?
Because our team has spent too much time trying to troubleshoot issues with Behringer manufacturing malfunctions that it's no longer worth doing. Now that we do so much installs and integration, I understand why a lot of installers and integrators do not support Behringer.
And what would be your favorite console these days?
Our bread and butter is Allen and Heath. I like the SQ for more compact version setups, and I like the Avantis. I think that Avantis is like a really great solid console. But then the Waves LV1, that's my other favorite too. I have multiple favorites, but I'd say Allen and Heath or Waves.
Okay.
Jake, is this you publicly admitting that Lee won the long game about that console?
Yep, Lee Lee was 1,000% right. I was too young and ignorant to acknowledge it back. However, was that 4 years ago now?
Yeah.
That takes a big
I
man
know.
to acknowledge they were wrong. I'm still trying to find that lever myself, so I applaud you, Jake.
And it did create, it did make for good TV. So we're all thankful for that.
Was the handbell symposium good TV, or was it as boring as I'm imagining?
Oh, it was great. It was back in, I don't know, early 2000s at some point. I think I just graduated high school. So I am from Vermont. And the thing about being from Vermont is there's really nothing that goes on there. So like we had a tiny little school and the only music program we had was handbells. So like we got really good at handbells in our little, also because it's so cold and gray outside, nobody wants to go outside and do anything, so we just play handbells all day, right? So
yeah.
we got really good, and we got invited to play at the International Handbell Symposium.
Isn't Vermont like 80% of the filming locations for Hallmark movies?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know where they've never shot a Hallmark movie? In the barn. But coming to you this December, Love in the Darkness, a film by ChurchGear.
Dude, I can see you and Chris making that movie.
Jake, I'm really glad he said making that movie and not making anything else. All right, let's pivot over to Jake because there's too much heat over here right now on me.
Okay.
Jake, give us some of your production background, man. We know that mostly you as the jerk who lives in Florida during the winter and posts about it to make us all jealous, but give us a snapshot of your background in worship and production and what led to ChurchFront.
Well, back in about 2006 or 7, I swapped out the old, I don't remember what type of console it was, but I installed a Mackie Onyx 32-channel console at my church in Vermont. And then I blanked, and then the next thing you know, I have a YouTube channel of 300,000 people on YouTube looking for me to me and our team for advice on how to improve their AVL systems.
So to clarify, we told Jake in the beginning that when we asked for a snapshot of your background and production, we're asking for a snapshot, and because some people can tend to go, deep into the details, and so I applaud you, Jake, for giving us an actual snapshot.
What did you call it last time? A snapshot? Remember, you tried to do highlight and snapshot together?
Oh, snapshot.
Snapshot. That was a really concise snapshot, Jake.
I like it.
So then you get on YouTube, it kind of blows up. Suddenly you're trying to, give people advice. How do you end up finding us and ending up in the barn? Because you're just trying to post a video about a console, and then suddenly you're in the murder mountain. So how did that happen?
I can't remember. Did you reach out to me, or I really don't remember how we connected?
I don't remember either.
3 or 4 years ago.
I know you or I, one of us,
in town for something, and actually I saw what ChurchGear was doing back in. This was like 21 or 2. We were kind of still maybe in the pandemic days or coming out of it, and I can't remember. Did I make a special trip to Nashville just to see you guys? I can't even remember, or if I was there for something else and it worked out. But yeah, I liked what you guys were doing, and I'm still like fascinated by the model of ChurchGear and the business, and like that's why I joke about it being a front company, because I'm like, who's buying all this old gear that you guys are selling? Like I still don't understand.
Yeah,
let me see the customer list.
ChurchGear is for sale for 3 magic beans if you want to purchase it.
And also the customer list starts with our employees. I specifically hire people that love used gear because then I know they're going to spend their money here at ChurchGear. It's a brilliant move, Blake.
There you go.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul or something like that.
So, Jake, you come out here to Nashville and you're going to do a tour of ChurchGear. Did you have any idea that we're in this dingy old barn at the time?
No. I'm trying to remember that day in particular. Adam was with me, and I think, was Adam with me?
I don't think anybody was with you.
Because I remember, dude, we hung out all day. I don't think anybody else was with you. If they were a ghost.
Man, I just wish my memory wasn't that bad. I really just don't remember who I was with, how I ended up there, but I know I did. I just woke up and I was at the ChurchGear barn. And then
at this point, do we tell Jake we drugged him and dragged him to Nashville?
Exactly.
Oh gosh.
So Jake, you
But yeah, I mean, we showed up. I was really impressed. You guys were in the barn, and then you were growing so fast that you're like, yeah, come back in like 6 months. We're going to be in the spot that you're at now.
Yeah.
And then I know I came back there again. Adam was with me that time, I think.
Yeah.
Or someone was with me that time.
Yeah, your whole crew was there that time.
Yep.
Yeah, so you filmed this video in the barn and you put it up on your YouTube page, and then you broke our site because it got like 50 or 60,000 views. Talk to us just a little bit about building up your YouTube presence. Was that always your goal, your idea, or did you just make a few videos just because you're trying to solve your own problem, and all of a sudden it was meeting a need in the church, and then you thought, oh, maybe I should be doing more of this?
Yeah, I think the goal and the vision always kind of changes and adapts. So back then, it would have been back in 2016, 17, I was a worship leader and figuring out tech issues myself, like every worship leader out there in a smaller church where you are the tech director, right? So to kind of go a little bit deeper into my story, it kind of naturally comes out instead of my, abbreviated version earlier. That's where I was at in 2016, 17. But I also, I kind of had like I'm an entrepreneur, and I think that's when I also discovered like, oh, wow, there's like an opportunity to build something here. And I realized that there was a lack of this knowledge online to be able to show people. And I know one thing I've continued to experience myself is I try to learn something new, and it's really hard and frustrating to do that because I can't find like a good step-by-step guide on how to do it. So I kind of brute force my way through learning something, and then I can turn around and explain it to someone much simpler so that they can, because I was in their shoes, I understand what it's like learning from that perspective. So early on, I learned all I could about like at least, what was true then and still what's true today of building online platforms and how the democratization now of media, where, people, if they're listening to this podcast right now, today they get to listen to this hyper specialized podcast where we're talking about church gear and production and all the other deranged things that go on in this podcast, right? Instead of listening to mass media radio stations. But that's the beauty of the internet and the type of media that we're in. So I was like, man, I think I can really build a media company that serves this market of worship and production leaders and trying to figure out the same problems I've been figuring out. And then from there, I think that's just going to open up a lot of opportunities of what ChurchFront can do as a company. And that's been continuously evolving. Like, and even the past year, I feel like we've evolved more in the past 12 months than we did in the prior 5 years.
Yeah. Was there, do you remember like an early video where all of a sudden you're like, oh, dang, like this could work? Or you were like super excited the response you got at this early video? Yeah.
One of the first videos I published, like one of the annoying things I tried to figure out myself was like how to automate Pro Presenter slides with Ableton Live, because it's like super practical as a worship leader when you can't find volunteers who can just like click a button at the right time or whatever. And I had those standards of excellence I was trying to meet. So I knew you could do it. I saw other YouTubes floating around, but it's like nobody like put this into a comprehensive video on how to do it.
Yeah.
So I made a video that was probably 45 minutes long or something like that. And it really was structured as a course. And the funny part is I was like, oh, I'm going to like try to put Facebook ads behind this and sell this course and make a bunch of money that way. Right. And then, everything, I saw a quote recently where it's like, we do this not because it was easy, but because we thought it was easy. That's like the motto of my life. And it's like, oh, I thought this was going to be easy. Then you find out the reality of it, and then you kind of pivot and you eventually figure it out. So this course, I was like, well, nobody's buying this course. I don't know how to do online marketing and get people to buy stuff. So I'm just going to take this 45-minute video and put it on YouTube for free. And then that's where the magic happened, is people started searching it. YouTube kept recommending it. And this was such a, random niche, in-depth video about this thing, but it really helped people. And I noticed like how many subscribers I started to get within just a few months of that video being up there. So I'm like, okay, now I'm just going to make a ton of videos based on what people are actually searching for. And I know that if I can build the audience, that the options for what we can do as a business will come down the road.
Yeah. Was there a video you remember of like,
as early as that video? And I was gonna say the other videos that pop out were like, I also noticed people really liked videos about doing tech tours and stuff. So I did a few of them locally to me in Denver. And then I was like, oh, what if I went to like Bethel Church? Like nobody else has made like a nice documentary about what Bethel does in their production department. And so I kind of had a hunch. Nobody's paying me to do this. Wasn't sponsored. Like this was me taking my own just kind of risk of like, let me fly myself there. And I had a Ashton, who used to be on my team, Miss Ashton. He's a good dude. And him and I went out. We lived on In-N-Out for 2 days straight. That's literally the only meal we had in Redding, California. Made a video, put a lot of time into editing it. He edited that one. It was really, he did a great job at it. And that video went pretty much viral, right? And it's like, that's where ChurchFront, I think, came onto the map even more. And this was in 2019, end of 2019. And then once COVID hit in 2020, I had all these videos floating around, especially a few about live streaming and stuff. And that's where it really started to blow up a lot with the YouTube channel. I think we probably had still under 100,000 subscribers when, it's probably like in the tens of thousands of subscribers within 2019. And then 2020 really just like took it to the next level of growth. And the growth has slowed down in this like high 200,000-ish range, because I think it does come to a point where there are only so many people out there who care as much about church production. And we're going to keep making content about it, but it's fun.
Jake, if you could please slow down, that would be great for me, because you keep pushing the number further. And so my bosses are like, well, if ChurchFront's did these numbers, we can do beyond that. So I would love for you to keep hitting the brakes on
down.
Please do.
Although we're slowing down, although sometimes I have some ideas of like some such fun video ideas that would go viral, and probably, but not for good. I think people would, it'd be very polarizing. I don't know why. It might be my like sixth sense of humor, but sometimes I can be a little polarizing about stuff. So
sometimes?
I might push it. I might push the gas pedal. I might push the gas pedal a little bit on our growth, but we'll see.
How often do you run things by your wife and say like, babe, is this too far?
Like random social media posts? Yeah. Like usually never, like she's acclimated to some of the anxiety that some of those posts can even cause her. But I'm like, it's just so funny. Did you guys see my latest meme that caused a story?
No, hit us.
Oh, I mean, just look on my Instagram account it's like the latest post on my personal account. I shared it on ChurchFront account too, but it's pretty funny. So you have, I think it's like, I've posted stuff in the past that I'll admit, I probably shouldn't have posted, but this one I still stand by. I think it's funny. So, the whole kerfuffle last week with Trump and Vance in the White House with Zelensky and the meeting they just had.
Yeah.
And there's like some great photos and memes that came from it. So you have Zelensky like sitting there with his arms crossed. He's like, I'm just saying it would be nice to have someone or have sermon slides earlier than 10 minutes before the service. And then you have Trump holding up his hand as a senior pastor and Vance holding up his hand as a senior pastor.
Associate pastor.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty funny.
That was my latest banger of a meme. I'm pretty proud of that one.
I love those little, funny quips where like everybody in the church community knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Toby, do you still run stuff by your wife, or is she also numb to it like Jake's wife is?
So my wife describes all the time being married to me as like being on a roller coaster, and you're going up and it's like click, 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 and she never knows when the drop is going to happen. But yes, I used to get myself into a lot of trouble on social media, especially when I was a worship pastor at a church, and I would post things that I thought were pretty innocent. And one specifically I remember, and this was during when Obama was president, and I copied somebody else's post, but just essentially the idea that what if Christians cared as much about sharing the gospel as they did about their feelings about universal health care? And I got lit up by a bunch of people that were justifying on both ends. And I had no idea I was stirring a pot of very sensitive and angry people and the hornet's nest. And then my wife is like, can you please stop posting that stuff? Because then I have to answer for you. So I just learned like, I let you be inflammatory now on social media on behalf of ChurchGear.
Well, since this is our 5-year anniversary, we're opening the hood a lot more than normal. you guys both run stuff by your wives. I run stuff by my boss, BD. So now this is cracking me up. Also, he says I have to answer for you, just like your wife says. So I don't know what that says about me, that y'all check with your wives and I check with him, but there we go.
Wait, I don't think, did I say I checked with my wife on my memes?
You said
I
you usually
don't.
don't. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My favorite line of his, if you've ever wondered, what does ChurchGear not post, what ends up in the exclusive paid firewall of ChurchGear After Dark? He said, if you have to ask me,
It's
that probably tells you.
Probably too far.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I that's the thing, is I do have my limits on, what I'll post or not post. And yeah, if I would use the same rule for my wife. If I had to ask my wife permission to post this, like, because I know there's going to be some sort of repercussion or consequences, like, then yeah, I shouldn't post it. Right. Yeah. That's kind of my own litmus test too.
Okay. What if?
Let's go,
What if
Blake.
at the end of the year, us, Jake, Lee Fields, everybody, we saved that one post we weren't going to post, and we all put it on a single carousel on one of our accounts and do a collab and tag? That'd be
funny.
The church production After Dark.
Oh yeah, and then nobody knows, and then nobody could know like who individually it came from. Maybe
that'd be
like,
good.
If it's all a collaborative post. Yeah, they're just mad at all of us instead of individually.
We could totally have Todd do it, and so there's one vanilla one out of all of them. We're like, well, we know that was Todd.
The one that's just so nice.
Jake, if we did that, we could bring a disaster on ourselves. We love asking for a good disaster story. You got any other production stories that, everything went wrong and how you solved it? Or, maybe it's not production. Maybe it's a YouTube video you were making for production people.
Oh, one that's kind of fresh in my mind is this week we had two of our guys. They wrapped up an install, did a great job up at church in Montana, and we had a day for them dedicated to filming the walkthrough video, YouTube videos of the install. And our team gets the footage back here yesterday, and the microphone audio was not embedded into the video, and nor did we have any backup recordings of the microphone. So, I mean, I say it's like not quite as much as my error in terms of like more of a team error there, but like that's, these things happen on a daily basis, and it's just like I just have to accept that they're never going to stop happening, apparently. And then, my own mistakes. I mean, I've done that before, like making YouTube videos. You know how many YouTube videos on my channel I've like reshot a second time?
Really?
Especially, just like, especially if it's like a studio, like I might be filming something. Oh yeah, like actually, me and just last week, Matt and I were filming a podcast, and I thought I was recording my screen in the right way, but it was like zoomed in, and it was like not useful after we just sat down and record 15 minutes of content. So we had to refilm it, right? And it's okay. Sometimes it was like so that happens. Like, I mean, we're getting better at preventing it, and some of it too is like we are in such a pace of growth right now. We don't have the time to set up the systems to help prevent some of that. So I think it'll get better over time as we build those systems. But yeah, I mean, that happens a lot. We've, in the past year, because we've been evolving from really a consulting company to now integration. Oh my gosh, countless stupid taxes we've had to pay to learn and stumble our way through integration projects.
Oh, tell us some.
Whether that's, I mean, a lot of it's like, okay, so it's funny because now, like looking in hindsight, it's like, okay, some of the first projects we did, we just didn't have enough essential IT knowledge that we needed to make sure our networking infrastructure we're setting up for the system is going to actually work. So then we're just like fumbling through troubleshooting network issues that back then we wasted hours and hours, almost days, trying to solve simple problems, where now it would take me like 5 minutes to diagnose and solve that problem. So it was really just like a lot of like ignorance issues there. Or for us, like one of the things about integration is like, you have to be good at design, documentation, modeling things ahead of time, so that there's just no surprises when you come onto a job site and you're like, okay, the plan was to put a speaker here, but now, wait, there's an air duct that nobody took into consideration. So now we got to pivot on site and make adjustments. So it's like endless stuff like that, which we're quickly learning and just getting better at on the next job. Things around, like I literally spent, me and Luke were pulling cable one day at a church, we probably spent like a whole 6 hours trying to figure out like, why can't we get these cables through this conduit? And there was part of a misunderstanding of electrical contractor not putting in a large enough conduit that we called for, because they're like, oh, AV guys, they just need like a 1/2-inch conduit, they'll be fine with that, right? And we're running like a half a dozen data video cables through it, so we're like struggling. This was in Phoenix in July in the attic. It's like 140 degrees in an attic. I have to chug a liter of Gatorade every 5 minutes I go up there, so I don't die of like dehydration. And finally, like I was like, I've had multiple dark nights of the soul over the past year, but that was one of the first one where I'm like, how the hell, like, we need to get these cables through this conduit. And it was like almost impossible, just the construction of the building. There's like no other pathway to get this cable where we needed to go. And then finally we discovered cable lube, and it's just like a simple thing that we didn't really know existed.
That's a real thing.
Lubricant that you spray inside conduit or anywhere that you're feeding cable, and then like, what do you know? It's still difficult, but we were able to make those cable pulls happen the way they needed to. Just a lot of dumb stuff like that, right? Like it is nonstop. And again, especially when you're growing a lot, like that stuff the frequency of that stuff happens a lot more. So I'm a little tired of it from the past year. I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but
Jake, that's death. That's death. Walk away. Drink more Gatorade and back up.
Blake, when I worked for a local integrator, like just, a single guy trucking a ladder kind of thing, and we were pulling snakes, and, back in the 90s, early 2000s.
It was so primitive, you ran audio with live snakes?
Exactly. So there were no data cables. There was no fiber. It was all just big ol' analog, 24, 32 channel snakes. And we're pulling this 250-foot snake through a conduit, and it's not going easily. And so the guy said, well, run to the store and get a bunch of Dawn dish soap. And so we just started pouring dish soap down there and then pulling, and that was the secret sauce.
Sounded like you needed some cable lube, which apparently is a real thing.
I'm sure somebody just basically took Dawn dish soap and rebranded it as cable lube. It's not going to be that different.
It's a Klein. We use the Klein foam lube, and it just has like a long little. It's like a spray can with a long straw on the end of it, and you just like, hold that down for a few seconds to get a bunch of lube in the pipe, and she goes right through. It's just like simple stuff like that. You never thought about how much friction there is, even with just a few cables. That you might look at a conduit and be like, oh man, I only got like 3 cables in this 2-inch conduit, but it's still like tough to pull it through because you have all that friction along those cables go on that length. So we go through a lot of cable lube now.
Blake, I think this is the first time we've talked about lube on the podcast. I didn't think it would go 5 years, but I'm proud of us.
Yeah, we've behaved, and this is an actual legitimate reason to talk about cable lube.
And did you run this by your boss before we started talking about lube?
Toby, my boss is in the corner right now. He's listening to all of this right now.
It'll be fine, Blake.
Okay. Jake, I know this is more of a party episode for our 5-year anniversary, but like, you guys are giving a lot of grace, So what is that process like?
We're never going to achieve perfection. And it's like, I'm okay if mistakes happen so long as it's a learning experience. That next, like, really becomes a problem if the same mistake keeps happening multiple times over and over. So, especially, I think, again, in seasons of like crazy growth and building, I think the mistakes are a natural part of it. But also at the same time, I'm like, I need to hire more people who like they've already made those mistakes and they can just like keep us from making more mistakes in the future. So it's kind of a balance of grace for existing members, putting in the right system for training, hiring the right new team members to help like prevent some of these headaches coming up. But it's kind of a grace. Got to have grace with ourselves and with others when the mark isn't hit. I will say the other thing. Well, I was going to ask because, like, looking at you guys and your banter and all that stuff, and I think what the culture you built at ChurchGear is special, and you guys have how much of your team is at your HQ, like local in Nashville, compared to are there anybody really remote?
Are we talking living members or buried members or both?
Both. Yeah, probably 80% of our team is here in, the greater Nashville area, and we see them on a consistent basis. We do have a handful of drivers and salespeople out of state, but we try and bring them in as often as possible or get together at events. Like there is a lot to be said for how much time you can spend together in person.
And they hate it because we make them sleep in the barn, but
Yeah, that's what it's there for.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think for our team moving forward. Like pretty much any new hires we're making, we're bringing people to Florida now.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of evolved to that place as a company and the team, the dynamics where like we just need, I think the grace and the training and that stuff is so much simpler when it can be done in person. So that I mean, that kind of proved, look again, knowing you guys are 80% in person, I think that kind of proves my thesis of where I'm thinking there.
Yep.
Toby, did we just both start taking jobs for ChurchFront right now? Because we can move to Florida.
I know Jared Nicholas is already signed up.
If he goes, I'm going.
Yeah, he's your work wife, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and Brian's your work father, right?
I'm going to take the whole family to Florida. Apparently,
Jake, because you like to make inflammatory statements. I just want to give you a little platform here and see. Do you have any?
I'm so scared. I'm so scared.
Do you have any current hot takes when it comes to worship and production, like something that a lot of churches are doing, or they're thinking like we have to do this? That you're like, no, here's my take, and I know it's going to upset some people, but let's throw it out there. Do you have anything like that?
Oh gosh, I wish I would have had time to think about this thing more. Most of my hot takes are actually not about worship and production world because I don't know, man. I'm trying to think through. Like, I think my gut says people tend to try to build over-engineered solutions than what they're ready for.
Yeah.
So I think I'm always like, can you? And this is what I do in my own life and business and ministry. It's like, can we just like? I'd rather keep things as simple as possible until the growth really justifies. We could need a bigger team, or we need more complex gear, or more premium gear, or whatever it is. Like, I think there's this balance in the church world where, again, people like see what's going on and stuff, and they're like, hey, like we want to invest into a $100,000 just video camera broadcast mix solution. But I'm like, I mean, are you sure? Like you only have like 12 people watching your live stream every week.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where even for me as an integrator, I'm financially incentivized to want people to spend $100,000 on an amazing system. And I'm all for that. But I think a church needs to be more critical about, do we actually have the creative potential to steward those types of resources effectively? And I think being an online content creator, I know that you can have an online content creator who produces everything on their iPhone massively outperforming a content creator who has Red cameras and SSL mixing consoles and all the fancy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, the production gear is very helpful when you have the first principles right for whatever you're trying to do, whether that's a church communicating the gospel message, both the truth of it and the creative ways you can do that, from a creative musical standpoint, visual standpoint. Like you want to focus on those first principles before you get focused on the fancy over-engineered solutions.
And on that, very topic, do you, now as you're doing integration, do you have a lot of just managing expectations of churches that come to you guys where you say, we want to, or you're starting the conversation, you're like, what's your vision? And they'll show you Elevation's live stream and say like, yeah, we want to do something kind of like this. And you're like, well, let's talk about what it takes to produce something like that. Are you trying to manage a lot of expectations?
Yeah, I think even we have conversations with pastors sometimes that are like, hey, we're ready to invest $250,000 or $500,000 into our new AVL system, which is often what it takes these days, even for a small to mid-sized church space, for what I would consider like premium or maybe more mid-level-ish to kind of somewhat premium solution, right? Like that's kind of probably the bread and butter budget range we're looking at. But I also want to I tell these pastors sometimes where it's like, hey, it's great that you want to invest in this premium system. And there is an element where having a system like this will make it easier for volunteers and less experienced production leaders to operate this system on a weekly basis. But have you also considered, like, if you're going to invest $250,000 to $500,000 into the system, I would take like maybe at least 10% of that cost should be your annual cost to have either contract, part-time, or sometimes full-time person dedicated to operating it to its maximum capacity. So you're not like, again, buying a NASCAR stock car, race car, like the highest engine, highest performing vehicle, and then handing it over to me. Like I wouldn't know how to drive a NASCAR race car efficiently, right? With the manual transmissions and that horsepower and how to navigate turns and stuff like that. That's what I feel like happens sometimes when a church does have the capital. It's good, but from an executive leadership level, they don't understand, like, you can't just buy the premium gear. You also got to staff it with the appropriate talent to actually operate that gear. And I have a YouTube channel that makes a lot of money making YouTube videos on a regular basis because it leads to all the business that we do. But I'm still like, we really can only justify using some like Sony A7S IIIs and, a DJI mic that we forget to press record on. And like, that's all we can handle right now, because I don't know. I just don't feel like it's justified the way I know that content creation works and what people are actually watching our videos for. They're not going to care if it's in, higher dynamic range images or 8K or whatever. It's like they just want the solutions to their problem. Yeah. So I think sometimes churches need to take all these things into consideration. It's like, what's the bigger mission we're going after here? How do we attack that? And then when it becomes clear that more AVL gear is going to help solve that problem, okay, let's do that. But then don't forget, like, do you have the manpower to properly operate that gear on a regular basis? Make sure that's taken care of as well.
Yeah. Love it.
Jake, would you almost go so far as to say if you had to pick, you'd take premium people over premium gear?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say in most cases, for sure. Sometimes it depends on how not premium is the gear we're talking about. But yeah, I would rather have quality people with the right knowledge. Because here's the thing. We're in the tech world, right? And technology keeps getting cheaper over time. So now a $2,000 mixing console, I think, can really achieve, if you take like the dang Behringer Wing Compact, right? Like, I don't like Behringer, but it's such a cheap console because of Behringer's probably Music Tribe's questionable labor policies they have to make it so cheap, and thanks to globalism, right? It still can produce a really professionally sounding mastered mix in this little $2,000 console, where the equivalent of that 20 years ago would have been, I don't know, like at least 10, maybe 20x the cost to get, because you're talking like all this outboard gear you would have to have, all the built-in compression, plugins, EQ, that. It's getting cheaper. We got to a place where the gear has gotten so cheap because technology has gotten so much better. So now it's like, I would rather have a qualified mix engineer on a Behringer Wing Compact than some like a untrained volunteer, an unmotivated volunteer on a SSL. Well, I don't even know what the fancy SSL models are because I don't even look at them. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, Blake, I'm looking at you now and deciding what's more premium, Blake or a Shure SM7?
Oh, dude, the Shure SM7 is way more durable than me.
Yeah.
Okay, how honest do we want to get on this podcast? Because Jake said that you shouldn't overly engineer stuff, and we have a story of something being overly engineered at ChurchGear that we shouldn't have to have a solution for that problem. We might save this for our 7 craziest wildest stories of ChurchGear episode that's coming out this month.
Are you talking about when the toilet got backed up, Blake?
Yep. We can save that for one of those because we do need one more, or we can do it here and this can be a tease.
Oh, we have 7 stories for that.
One of them
episode.
is getting cut.
Oh, no. Is it because it's too inappropriate?
Yes, it is. That is going to end up on the end of the year reel of the Production After Dark.
No, I think we can come up with a better story. Let's tell this one.
Jake, our warehouse operator or warehouse manager, Chris, goes, I'm all for thinking engineeringly, which is a core value of ChurchGear. It's one of our 6. But we've thought a solution to a problem that shouldn't exist. What was the problem, Toby?
Somebody dropped something in the toilet of their own creation, and it simply would not flush.
And according to people around us, it was long and hard, and it had come out of them somehow. And so the guy who's Chris's boss, so like the head of all of ChurchGear operations, he's like a really nice guy, like truly one of the nicest guys you could know. He couldn't get it to flush, and he was pissed.
He was mad. He was like, dude, if you drop that thing, like, you take care of it yourself.
So he sends out this group message to everybody that's in the warehouse. Well, then people who are on remote start hearing about it, starts circulating. And I was like, well, just use the poop knife. I heard about this on another podcast. There was a family, this happened to them all the time. They would just have a knife in the bathroom, and you cut that thing up.
Now, granted, Blake, you're a little bit right, because I'll make my smoothies in the morning and I'll put in a frozen banana, and that sometimes can totally stop the whole blender operation. And I'll have to go in and I'll have to cut the frozen banana with a knife. So exact same idea.
What if we just had that same knife? Like, you use it in the morning, bring it to the warehouse, we'll use it during the day. You take it home, use it the next morning. Poor Jake.
Poor Jake. This is a perfect episode for Jake.
Well, Jake, you've seen us at our worst, truly. You've seen the barn at the worst. We're being our worst right now.
Yeah.
What do you think about the poop knife? Should a company have that?
Is that an over-engineered solution or just right?
Wait, so how did you solve the issue?
I don't know, Blake. Do you know how did it actually finally go down?
That's more ChurchGear lore. We don't know how he got it down, but they somehow got it down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we don't know.
We'll save that for the 10th
isn't that
anniversary.
Where, don't plumbers just have like snakes and stuff? Like sometimes like motorized snakes to just clear it out, those must be the right tool. I've never heard of a poop knife before.
Forget the snake. I think they need a blowtorch. All right, Jake, we're really doing a hard pivot right now. It's like youth ministry where they play the game and then they immediately go to worship. The hardest right turn ever. If we're going to hard right turn into a tech takeaway, man, what would you tell a room full of production people to encourage them, whether it be, buy a poop knife or don't over-engineer a solution or, something else?
Just bring it all back to the fundamentals and the first principles. That's the biggest lessons I've learned, especially when I'm in a place where I'm trying to grow, or maybe I'm not even trying to grow. Everything's growing around me. I'm just trying to keep up. It's like a lot of what we do in tech can be broken down into very simple building blocks, whether it's understanding the building blocks of your networking infrastructure and knowing how to think like an IT guy, or the building blocks of what's actually going to create a good mix. Is it going to be the fancy plugins by Waves, or is it just going to be, the correct things like gain staging, mic placement, make sure the room doesn't have any glaring issues when it comes to treatment. With video systems, it's like, do we have good lighting in place before we worry about upgrading to a crazy cinema camera for this live stream? So to me, because that's what's happening to me in my life right now, is like when things get overwhelming and crazy, I have to relentlessly go back to the basics of all these various systems that I'm trying to get to work together to make sure there's not like glaring issues, and being like, oh yeah, like we could totally solve this headache that's coming up by just like reworking the system and stuff. So this is just fresh, a lot of stuff that's going through my mind now, but I think it applies to any business, any ministry we're working in. Just stop overcomplicating things and focus on the first principles of everything you do. And then the more you do that, you're going to probably save yourself just a lot more, even money in the long run, by not trying to solve a problem that you might be having with more gear. You might be able to solve that problem with a better strategy, a better training protocol for your volunteers, and it's going to keep your life much simpler.
I'd almost summarize that to say, focus on your systems, not your problems, because you'll solve those problems by focusing on your systems.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, we really appreciate you joining us I know we're normally nonsense, but man, we really amped it up today.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to plug?
I appreciate you amping it up.
Any ChurchFront stuff to
just
point
head on. We're doing the same stuff as usual. Go to YouTube, and if we're coming out with great content. We've learned. I think the best stuff we've learned, and some of the best content we're putting out now, is just tours of the systems that we've built. We've done a lot of tech tours before, but now like our team thoroughly understands these systems because we're the ones who put them in there. So I was telling Matt on our team, I'm like, our best learning content is us walking through our systems and how we're explaining why we chose what we chose and how it all works, how it all integrates. So I think it's worth it for every tech director out there to kind of learn more about integration, think more like an integrator, because it's only going to make your job better. You're going to be a more valuable asset to your team and your church.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, Jake, thanks for joining us. I got to go get the poop knife, but it's been a fun time. Thanks for joining us for our anniversary episode.
Thanks, guys. Congrats on the anniversary. Thanks, ChurchGear, for all you guys do.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the ChurchGear Studios.
Blake, I know now how we're going to blow up on YouTube.
Okay.
It's a, how to make a homemade poop knife.
Great. And then use cable lube on the knife to kind of slide through that chunky turd. We really got to cut this whole episode.
Uh-huh.
Is this the first one to go behind ChurchGear After Dark paywall?
It might be. So if you've happened to have listened to this and you weren't behind the paywall, what should they do immediately,
You
Blake?
should share it to your friends and be like, this is soon going to go behind the ChurchGear After Dark paywall, so you should listen to it now.
Yeah, man, this episode is thick enough to cup with a poop knife.